A warm good morning to all of you. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning and we're back once again with a fresh edition of Breakfast News, a show which we get for you every morning to make sure that you keep yourself abreast with everything that's been making it to the headlines. I'm Preeti, with me is Rukma, and in the next 1 hour we'll take you through everything that's been making it to the headlines. National updates, international updates, updates from the world of business, sports, a web review, health tip, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour.
A very good morning to you, Preeti, and to all our viewers as well. And as Preeti just said, we'll be bringing you all the top stories over the next 60 minutes as the Prime Minister is all set to lay the foundation stone of a prestigious university in Aligarh today. Also, all the news from Afghanistan, as there are lots of new developments, the world expressing concern about the humanitarian crisis as it worsens there. All the COVID updates as India achieves another milestone as far as vaccination is concerned. All that and much more in the next 1 hour. But first, here are the headlines.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi to lay the foundation stone of Raja Mahindra Singh State University in Aligarh calls it an important day for the education sector. Prime Minister to also visit the exhibition models of Aligarh mode of Uttar Pradesh Defence Industrial Corridor.
India's COVID vaccine drive crosses 75 crore milestone. Union Health Minister calls it a historic feat. Now government aims to achieve complete vaccination. By December, 99% healthcare and frontline workers already inoculated with at least one shot.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi to participate in the Quad Leaders Summit in Washington on 24th September. Leaders to review Quad vaccine initiative and exchange views on contemporary global issues. Prime Minister will also address 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly.
India reiterates call for preventing Afghan soil from being used for terrorist activities. External Affairs Minister addresses UN meeting on Afghanistan, stresses on need to urgently implement UN Security Council resolutions to curb terror financing.
United States pledges $64 million in new humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan after United Nations urged world community to raise more than $600 million in aid for the crisis-ridden country. Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan a looming catastrophe.
In Norway, left-wing opposition headed by Labour Party leader Jonas Store secures landslide victory in general elections. Unseats Conservative Prime Minister Erna Solberg after campaign dominated by future of country's oil industry.
Nation celebrates Hindi Diwas today to commemorate the adoption of Hindi as the official language. Home Minister Amit Shah to present Raj Bhasha Kirti Award and Raj Bhasha Gaurav Awards today.
And now let's take a look at the news in detail.
Yes, we begin with the national headlines first. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay the foundation stone of Raja Mahindra Singh State University in Aligarh, Uttar Pradesh today. The Prime Minister will also visit the exhibition models of Aligarh node of Uttar Pradesh Defence Industrial Corridor. This and more in the report ahead.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay the foundation stone of Raja Mahindra Singh State University in Aligarh, Uttar Pradesh on 14th September. He will also address the gathering on this occasion. It's a dream come true for the people of the city of Aligarh.
शिक्षा क्षेत्र में, विद्या क्षेत्र में, शिक्षक क्षेत्र में उन्होंने काम किया बहुत ज्यादा. ऐसे राजा महापुरुष के नाम से यूनिवर्सिटी का नाम रखकर उसको आगे बढ़ाना के लिए मोदी जी के आना ये अलीगढ़ के लिए सौभाग्य की बात है और अलीगढ़ की जनता उनका स्वागत करने के लिए यहाँ पर तत्पर खड़ी हुई है.
The university is being established by the state government in memory and honor of great freedom fighter, educationist, social reformer Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh ji.
ये ऐसे व्यक्ति के प्रति सम्मान है जिन्होंने 32 वर्षों तक अंग्रेजों से लड़ते हुए अपने आप को एक स्वतंत्रता सेनानी के रूप में, एक राष्ट्रभक्त, एक नागरिक के रूप में उन्होंने अपना जीवन दिया.
The university is being set up in a total area of over 92 acres at village Lodha and village Musepur Karim Jaroli of Aligarh's Kol Tehsil. It will provide affiliation to 395 colleges of the Aligarh division. This is the same DS college where students launched an agitation for the university 9 years ago.
बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है जब विश्वविद्यालय बन रहा है हमारे लिए, और आगरा के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा लोड था. वहाँ पे भागते रहते थे, दौड़ते रहते थे, लेकिन काम नहीं हो पाता था. यहाँ मिलेगा, हमारी परेशानियाँ सुनी जाएंगी, जल्द से जल्द हमारी जो प्रॉब्लम है वो सॉल्व होगी, और आने वाले जो बच्चे हैं उनके लिए भी अच्छा अवसर मिल रहा है, उन्हें भी अच्छे से पढ़ाई होगी उनकी.
ये जो सरकार ने बहुत अच्छा निर्णय लिया है, और ये जो आगरा यूनिवर्सिटी के ऊपर काफी लोड था और हम लोगों के ऊपर भी काफी दिक्कतें आती थी, वहां जाना पड़ता था. अब जो है ये डीएस है, वाशनी है, ये तमाम कॉलेज वहां मर्ज हो जाएंगे और हम लोगों को भी सहूलियत मिलेगी.
Prime Minister will also visit the exhibition models of Aligarh node of Uttar Pradesh Defence Industrial Corridor and Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh State University. The establishment of Defence Industrial Corridor in Uttar Pradesh was announced by Prime Minister while inaugurating the UP Investors Summit in Lucknow on February 21st, 2018. A total of 6 nodes, Aligarh, Agra, Kanpur, Chitrakoot, Jhansi and Lucknow, have been planned in the Defence Industrial Corridor. In the Aligarh node, land allocation process has been completed and land has been allotted to 19 firms who will invest 1,245 crore rupees. The Defence Industrial Corridor of Uttar Pradesh will help in making the country self-reliant in the field of defence production. Bureau Report, DD India.
Great-grandson of Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh, Charat Pratap Singh, has thanked the government and Prime Minister Narendra Modi for acknowledging Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh's contribution towards education. In an exclusive interview with our correspondent Bhishek, Charat Pratap Singh also talked about his history, his struggle as a freedom fighter and his contribution towards establishing AMU, as well as his stance on the controversy of a portrait of the Raja in AMU.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be laying foundation stone of a college in the name of Raja Mahindra Singh, who is very historical figure in this region, but somehow his contribution in both education and being a social reformist and an independence fighter has not been duly accredited or acknowledged. His great-grandson Charat Pratap Singh will be joining Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the stage. He's been invited in this event as a chief guest. We would like to know some bits about the history and legacy of Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh from himself. How do you see this whole process of, maybe it's too late, but still acknowledging the contribution of Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh, especially in education sector?
I feel that it's always better late than never. Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh has done, immense work in the education of India. He always believed that technical education is a very important aspect, and the present Indian government is, honoring him. I think that's a very big honor for Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh.
Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh has been truly an educationist, a reformist, but his role in independence movement is also quite significant. He was the first who actually tried to establish a government in exile for India. Could you tell us something about this whole history a bit?
Yes, Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh, when we think about him, he has made tremendous sacrifices, because he left his home, he left his kingdom, he left everything back home, and he went to, outside India, and he had to live there for 32 years, doing all the, what he could do for the freedom struggle. He went to Afghanistan, and in Kabul, he made the first provisional government in Store Palace in 1915.
How does the family of Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh lives those memory, those history bit? How do you continue to keep that legacy up?
See, the thing is that, Dadaji is known for his philanthropist, activities. He gave away his, he had a, like a mahal in Vrindavan, which he gave away as a trust, his 5 villages and 2-3 other mahals, so that he could form the Prem Mahavidyalaya, which became the first polytechnic of India. He gave many lands to many institutions. He played a very crucial role in forming of Aligarh Muslim University. Many lands have been given, lands have been acquired, lands have been leased from our family, and he did everything possible as far as education is concerned.
You'll be sharing stage with Prime Minister on Tuesday when this whole laying foundation stone will be happening. Your thoughts on this?
I'm so happy to be here and be with the Braj, my brothers and sisters, and it's a very joyous feeling that what the government is doing and honoring him.
Thank you. So this was Charat Pratap Singh, great grandson of Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh. A due acknowledgement of Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh in the name of a college which will be founded in his name. With camera person Kumar Datta, this is Abhishek Jha for DD News from Aligarh.
And joining us now is our correspondent Abhishek Jha, who's covered this entire story. Abhishek, a very good morning to you. It's a big day for youngsters, for the youth of that entire area. As we just heard, the laying of the foundation stone of a prestigious university like the one that the Prime Minister will be undertaking today. It's a source of great hope and the fulfillment of long-held aspirations.
Of course, Rukmasi, this whole region has been known with this Aligarh Muslim University, but over the years, the number of youth who aspire to become more educated, especially in higher education, and become more employable has increased, and the load of new generation's education has been shifted to nearby colleges, especially Agra, which is very almost 60 to 80 kilometers minimum from here. So with this new college, which is being in the name of Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh, student leaders, students, local people, they have expressed their hope and respect for the new government, because not only this will provide an education opportunity to them, but it will also remind them the legacy of Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh. We know that we just heard his great grandson talking to us that the way Raja Mahindra Pratap Singh was an educationist, a reformist, a social thinker, a philanthropist, his contribution towards nation building has not been duly acknowledged, and with this college being in his name is a small step, but surely in right direction.
All right, this is a small step, but in the right direction. Abhishek, also get us more on the Defence Industrial Corridor in Uttar Pradesh that was announced by the Prime Minister in 2018, and he will also visit the exhibition models of Aligarh node of Uttar Pradesh Defence Industrial Corridor. Spell out more on this as well.
Okay, so Priti, about this industrial defence corridor, the two major aims of this whole project is first get India self-reliant in terms of production of defence equipment and manufacturing. The capability is ensuring the capability and scalability of the defence manufacturing scenario. The second is how to create more and more job employment opportunities, and to this end, for both two of this vision, this defence corridor is going to have a tremendous effect. Not only the Aligarh, we know that Kanpur, Agra, other parts are also included in the overall defence corridor, and almost 3 years ago, Prime Minister had declared that there will be a defence corridor in Aligarh. A lot of groundwork has happened. We also heard stories that some location sites have been identified, some land acquisition has happened. So now we can hope that with the laying foundation of this defence corridor also, the work will start on this project, and soon people in and around Aligarh, Agra and nearby places will have more job opportunities, and India will become self-reliant in defence manufacturing in the days to come.
All right, thank you so much, Abhishek, for joining us with those inputs. We'll come back to you again during the day when the program begins. So that was our correspondent Abhishek Jha telling us more about the two programs which the Prime Minister will be participating today in Aligarh. We'll keep you updated. Up next, let's get to an update on the COVID situation in the country. The world's largest vaccination program was Rather, it has in fact added another feather in India's cap, and India has crossed 75 crore vaccine doses milestone, even as many nations, including the more developed ones, are struggling to keep the pace with a highly contagious virus. Take a look at this report.
India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed 75 crore landmark milestone. The country has also become home to more than 99% healthcare workers and frontline workers vaccinated with one shot of COVID vaccine. This remarkable achievement has been made possible because of the dedicated frontline workforce, the scientists of the nation, and the robust vaccine infrastructure of India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi led from the front and made it possible at a time when most of the developed nations are struggling to maintain pace with the highly contagious virus.
आत्मविश्वास और आत्मनिर्भरता की इसी ताकत को हमें टीकाकरण के इस दौर में भी सशक्त कर रहा है। राष्ट्र सिर्फ मिट्टी, पानी, कंकड़, पत्थर से नहीं बनता, बल्कि राष्ट्र का अर्थ होता है हमारे लोग। कोरोना के विरुद्ध लड़ाई को संपूर्ण देश ने इसी भावना के साथ लड़ा है।
Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia lauded the entire country for the achievement. He tweeted, "Congratulations India, along with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Sabka Saath Sabka Prayas mantra, the world's largest vaccination drive is continuously scaling new heights. Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, that is, during the 75th year of independence, the nation has crossed the 75th crore vaccine doses milestone."
It's a matter of great pride, and I congratulate all the community who has come forward and showed eagerness to get immunized. We have now almost 17 to 18% of our adult population which is completely immunized, and totally about 55% people have got at least one dose of COVID vaccine. And this is our rapid pace to prevent the next wave as well as get back mainstreaming the life in India.
Union Minister for Information and Technology Anurag Singh Thakur also congratulated the nation on the achievement.
प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में जहां भारत के वैज्ञानिकों ने भारत में ही मेक इन इंडिया का टीका करने का, बनाने का, निर्माण करने का काम शुरू किया, वहीं पर जन जन को मुफ्त में टीका मिले, वैक्सीनेशन हो, इसके लिए भारत सरकार ने पैसों का प्रावधान भी किया। मैं बधाई देता हूं टीका लगाने वालों को भी और लगवाने वालों को भी, कोविड वॉरियर्स को भी, कि उन्होंने टीका लगाने में भी प्राथमिकता दी और 75 करोड़ टीकाकरण होना अपने आप में एक बड़ी उपलब्धि है। और मुझे पूर्ण विश्वास है कोरोना के खिलाफ हमारी ये जो जंग है, इसमें टीकाकरण एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभा रहा है।
Common man of the nation has complimented the work done by the centre under Prime Minister's leadership. Many citizens have also underlined the need to maintain the pace of vaccination. World Health Organization's Southeast Asia office has also congratulated India for accelerating COVID-19 vaccination and achieving the 75 crore landmark. Bureau Report, TT India.
And joining us now is our correspondent Tapas Bhattacharya. Tapas, a great achievement, much expected though, because in the race, the pace at which the vaccination drive was undertaken from the very beginning, the pressure that the government put in, and the enthusiasm and grit and determination of our health workers. A lot of credit to all the stakeholders.
A lot of credit to the stakeholders and also a lot of credit to the government of India led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the way he marshaled his resources, marshaled his all the scientific community, the researchers to come out with a COVID vaccine. Remember, if you take a close look at the history of vaccine development, you will realize the fact that it takes almost 5 to 10 years for a vaccine to be available, and that too for a country like India. So when you talk about that, we will realize the fact that this is a huge opportunity, and kudos to the researchers who have come out. Remember, even in January, the first two vaccination dosage came. There was a bit of a skepticism when whether India will be able to vaccinate its entire population. That myth has also been busted now. It's been twice India has achieved so far 1 crore vaccination dosage in a day. And if we keep the pace of the vaccination continue, we realize the fact that we have reached a watershed moment in the fight against COVID-19. This is what probably the end game begins, as you can say. 75 crore, more than 75 crore, 10 lakh, then the number keeps on increasing. And if we continue to keep up the pace and with the new vaccines coming up in the country, we realize that in the Prime Minister's dream of vaccinating entire population by the end of December may not just be a dream, it may be a reality very soon. In fact, some of the states, we take a close look at some of the state points of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh. These states have actually gone ahead. These states actually, if they keep up the pace, in fact, 8 states are such that if they keep up the pace, they may be able to vaccinate its entire population before the December deadline. But and in fact, Himachal Pradesh, one of the key states in this particular fight against pandemic, has if they continue to keep up their pace of vaccination, they may be able to do that within the last or probably the end of October itself. So huge boost for India's immunization and vaccination drive, and this just may be the end game for in the fight against COVID-19.
All right, Tapas, you tell us this could be the end game, in the fight against COVID, but we've also told our viewers that we are doing better than most of the developed countries which are struggling to, find means to fight the pandemic. To this day and to the day from where we began, where we had a dearth of medical equipments as basic as PPE kits, and to this day when we are, giving medical aid, we're giving vaccines to the other countries, and also we've set records back home as well. We were talking of the vaccination drive. You have been covering COVID, ever since it began. How do you read the journey which the country has put forth in the fight against COVID to from where we began to this milestone which we have achieved, and the road ahead as well?
It is definitely, if we take a close look at 28% figure for a period where in the concerted efforts of the government of India, led by Prime Minister Modi, made sure that even when the COVID pandemic started, there was there was curtailment of a lot of life. The way he worked hard, and the way the lockdown came into effect, and he made sure that the virus doesn't spread that fast. It is one of the most contagious diseases in the history of mankind, and thus it was quite imperative that it had to be curtailed at the beginning. So his effort was quite lauded. And then the process of vaccination, developing indigenous vaccination that started. You have to look at history to understand where we are. It gives you a perspective, and the perspective is that for a country like India, it gets most of its life-saving drugs, life-saving medicines quite late. In fact, even the polio vaccination we receive quite late. In that terms, you could say that right after United States or Western European countries received their first COVID vaccine, India developed, and it didn't wait for the COVID vaccine to arrive from other countries. It actually developed 2 of its COVID vaccine, and we just spoke about the pace and in the manner in which the frontline workers were given all around in the country, be it from the north to east to west to south, or everywhere, each and every corner of the country, it was provided. Now, when we talk about the vaccination drive, you spoke about the fact that some of the key states actually have done really well. And if you take a close look at states like UP, Gujarat, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Haryana, these states actually are, if you take a look at their the vaccination speed, the way in the manner in which their vaccination process has started, they realize that some of these states have actually done better than most of the countries. In fact, let's just give you an example of Gujarat. Gujarat's average is close to what you could say 4.8 lakh per day. And if you compare it with Mexico, Mexico has a 4.56 lakh per day vaccination. So in that sense, again, Gujarat is up way ahead. Now, Karnataka, giving you a small example of Karnataka. Karnataka administers 3.82 lakh at an average. And Russia has a 3.68 lakh. So again, Karnataka leaves Russia quite a distance. Same with Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh and France, that's a very important comparison. Madhya Pradesh at an average gives almost 3.71 lakh vaccination doses. And if you compare it with France, France provides 2.84. So the reason why I'm saying is that a lot of naysayers were saying that India's speed of vaccination is not enough. These comparisons will tell you a story that Indian government has been at the forefront of this particular fight against pandemic, and they have done exceptionally well in comparison. In fact, some of the states comparison, and they have done exceedingly well. Now, coming back to future again, Preeti, you talk about the vaccines that we currently have. And we expect that by the end of this month or by the end of next month, we will have 6 more vaccines in the kitty, and that will again give a major
right.
boost.
That would give a further fillip and further thrust to the fight against the pandemic. Thank you so much, Tapas, for joining in with your inputs.
And it's time to move on to other news stories. The centre has written to states and union territories emphasizing on acceleration of and prevention and control activities for vector-borne diseases such as dengue without cutting any corners as precautions against COVID-19. In a letter to chief secretaries and administrators of all states and union territories, Union Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan said entomological surveillance, source reduction activities and prompt vector control measures must be implemented for minimizing the risk of transmission. He also underlined the need for keeping rapid response teams ready with all necessary logistics for timely deployment to combat any fever outbreak. He further said all hospitals must be alerted for preparing contingency plans, ensure availability of necessary diagnostics, drugs and other supplies for treatment or management of VBD cases. Stating that a surge in dengue cases has been reported in a few states in recent weeks, the Health Secretary said the spread and transmission of these diseases are influenced by environmental factors and their transmission is maximum during the monsoon and post-monsoon period due to the congenial environment for vector proliferation.
And every day we get you a story on the freedom struggle of the country. And in today's episode of Saga of Freedom Struggle, we will learn about the revolutionary acts done by Gadicherla Hari Sarvottama Rao and also how he led the famous library movement in Andhra Pradesh. Take a look.
Today is the birth anniversary of freedom fighter Gadicherla Hari Sarvottama Rao, who is popularly known as Andhra Tilak. He was born on this day in 1883 in Kurnool. Rao was inspired by the ideologies of Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Bipin Chandra Pal and joined the freedom movement at a very young age. Rao finished his MA from Madras Christian College in 1906, while at the Teachers Training College of Rajahmundry, Rao and his fellow students attended a lecture by Bipin Chandra Pal.
Inspired by Pal's speech, the students wore badges inscribed with Vande Mataram to the college the next day.
Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram.
Mark Hunter, the college principal, objected and refused to admit the students until they removed the badges. The students refused. The principal dismissed Rao, who was a student leader, from the college. In 1908, Rao started a Telugu weekly newspaper called Swarajya. He criticized the policies of the British through his articles published in the magazine. The British declared that Rao's article, Biprit Buddhi, was an act of sedition and sentenced him to 3 years in prison. In 1914, he became the secretary for the Andhra division of the Home Rule League formed by Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Annie Besant. In 1923, he joined the Swarajya Party formed by Chittaranjan Das and Motilal Nehru.
Gardi Cherala Hari Sarvottam Rao is considered as one of the pioneers of the library movement in Andhra Pradesh. He nurtured the library movement in Telugu-speaking regions. Rao was its president for a record 24 years. He had the rare distinction of being the vice president of the Indian Library Association, Calcutta, and the first director of adult education in the Madras Presidency.
It was the strength of the library movement and its philosophy that contributed to the Madras Public Libraries Act 1948. Rao also started and edited several publications and newspapers. Some of them are Andhra Kesari, Navyogam, Andhra Patrika, Matru Seva, Andhra Varta, Panchayati Rajyam. Nominated as the first editor of Andhra Patrika, he stood for the national cause and laid an unshakable foundation for Telugu journalism.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. See you in next episode tomorrow.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate in the Leaders Summit of the Quadrilateral Framework in Washington, D.C. on the 24th of September of this month, along with Prime Minister of Australia Scott Morrison, Prime Minister of Japan Yoshihide Suga and US President Joseph Biden. External Affairs Ministry in a statement said, the leaders will review progress made since their first virtual summit on the 12th of March 2021 and discuss regional issues of shared interest. They will also exchange views on contemporary global issues such as critical and emerging technologies, connectivity and infrastructure, cybersecurity, maritime security, humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, climate change, and education. The summit will provide a valuable opportunity for dialogue and interactions among the leaders, anchored in their shared vision of ensuring a free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. The statement further said the Prime Minister is scheduled to address the general debate of the high-level segment of the 76th. The theme of this year's general debate is building resilience through hope to recover from COVID-19, rebuild sustainably, respond to the needs of the planet, respect the rights of people, and revitalize the United Nations. And joining us now on the phone line to tell us more about this is Ramesh Ramachandran, our correspondent. Ramesh, a very good morning to you. It's to be the first in-person quad grouping meeting in the United States in Washington, D.C. Take us through the significance, take us what it means and what it could mean.
Morning, Rupma. I mentioned that announcement was made both in Washington, D.C. and New Delhi. The White House press secretary that the Quad leaders would look to hammer out a consensus on quote-unquote cooperation in areas such as you mentioned, the free and open security, including maritime and cyber, as well as the Quad vaccine, and also on infrastructure and connectivity. And Jen Psaki also said that the U.S. considers the Quad a priority. From India's side, India will be looking to hear from the other three Quad leaders Prime Minister Morrison of Australia, Prime Minister Suga of Japan, and President Biden about the next steps in Quad cooperation, especially from India's perspective on having a stable and predictable environment in the wider Indo-Pacific region. Now that's as far as the Quad is concerned. So this is the second time in 6 months that all 4 Quad leaders will be meeting. Remember, they met last in a virtual format on the 12th of March this year, and this would be the first in-person meeting to be held in Washington, D.C. later. So all eyes, especially on what these 4 countries decide and mention in their statement towards the end of their talks.
All right, Ramesh, also when we talk of this Quad grouping, it was in early 2007 when it was, suggested to form a group. To that, to then till here, how far has the Quad grouping come with regards to the relevance or significance of it on the global page with regards to the geopolitical issues, specifically in the Indo-Pacific region?
Well, as India's External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar said recently, at least New Delhi sees the Quad as something of a reality rooted in the contemporary world, given what is happening in the wider Indo-Pacific region. As you correctly mentioned, the origins of the Quad can be traced back over a decade back, but just to give us a view of the parallels between then and now, the Quad countries first came together informally in the immediate aftermath of the 2004 tsunami. At that time, the focus was on humanitarian disaster relief. And since then, we saw the leaders of all 4 Quad countries meet off and on, including, as you mentioned, for the first time on the margins in 2007. But then the Quad was put on the back burner until 10 years later in 2017 on the margins of another summit in the Philippines. All 4 Quad countries and the leaders met. So it was revived again after a gap of 10 years. But since then, in the last 4 years, the momentum has picked up. Their foreign ministers, their officials, their leaders have been meeting regularly, including, as I mentioned, for the first virtual summit that took place on the 12th of March this year, and the in-person summit which will take place in Washington, D.C. later this month.
All right, thank you so much, Ramesh, for joining in with those inputs. That was our correspondent, Ramesh Ramachandran, spelling out more on the issues which could be taken up when the first in-person meeting of the Quad grouping takes place on 24th of September.
And time to move on to other news stories. A focus on Afghanistan, as we were telling you.
Yes, as the people of Afghanistan face a massive humanitarian calamity or crisis, the United Nations has convened a high-level meeting on humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan. The meeting highlighted the acute needs in the country and also understood the urgent funding support and actions required by international partners to support the Afghan people during their times of need.
United Nations has called emergency aid of more than $600 million in a flash appeal to avert the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. Addressing a high-level ministerial meeting on the humanitarian situation in the landlocked nation, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said it is imperative for the international community to extend a lifeline to the Afghans.
To continue our life-saving efforts in Afghanistan, we need 4 things right away. First, funding. We need more, and we need it quickly. And we need to be flexible enough to adapt to the fast-changing conditions on the ground. I urge you to support our flash appeal for $606 million to get urgent assistance to 11 million people in the next 4 months.
The UN chief appealed to the international community to partake its responsibility in addressing the refugee crisis in Afghanistan.
With member states generously opening their doors to Afghans forced to flee their country. And all member states must respect international refugee protection responsibilities. Our support must match the scale of the needs.
India called for ensuring that Afghan soil should not be used for terrorist activities. Virtually addressing the UN high-level meeting on the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said that UNSC Council Resolution 2593 on curbing terror financing should guide the international community's approach in Afghanistan.
The UN Security Council Resolution 2593 should guide the international community's approach in the coming days. Our friendship is reflected in Indian development projects that today exist in all the 34 provinces. In all, we have invested more than $3 billion for the welfare of the people of Afghanistan.
China, meanwhile, on Monday asked the US and the international community to take active actions to help ease the economic crisis in Afghanistan by providing aid to the country, even as it called on the Taliban to stay true to its commitment and not allow terrorist groups to operate from its soil. Meanwhile, even as the security situation in Afghanistan remains fluid, the first international commercial flight landed in Kabul on Monday, nearly a month after Taliban took over Afghanistan. Bureau Report, DD India.
As part of its commitment to the people of Afghanistan, the United States is providing nearly $64 million in new humanitarian assistance to the people affected by the ongoing humanitarian crisis there. This brings the total U.S. humanitarian aid in Afghanistan and for Afghan refugees in the region to nearly $4 billion since 2002. This assistance from the United States will flow through independent humanitarian organizations, including the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the World Health Organization, and provide support directly to the more than 18.4 million vulnerable Afghans in the region, including Afghan refugees. The United States is the largest single humanitarian donor to Afghanistan, and with this announcement will have provided nearly $330 million this fiscal year alone.
Top US diplomat Antony Blinken has defended the chaotic Afghanistan pullout in the first official testimony to the members of Congress since the exit. Testifying before a US House of Representatives committee via video link, Secretary of State Antony Blinken in his opening remarks suggested that President Joe Biden had inherited a bad deal on Afghanistan from his predecessor Donald Trump. He added that the alternative to withdrawal would have cost lives and that the withdrawal was coordinated with America's partners.
Upon taking office, President Biden immediately faced the choice between ending the war or escalating. Had he not followed through on his predecessor's commitment, attacks on our forces and those of our allies would have resumed, and the Taliban's nationwide assaults on Afghanistan's major cities would have commenced. That would have required sending substantially more U.S. forces into Afghanistan to defend themselves and prevent a Taliban takeover, taking casualties, and with at best the prospect of restoring a stalemate and remaining stuck in Afghanistan under fire indefinitely. On the first flights on Thursday.
Offering harsh criticism at the contentious congressional hearing where at least one Republican called for Blinken's resignation, Representative Mast accused Biden administration of clearly manipulating the intelligence on Afghanistan.
I do not believe whatsoever what you're saying about the administration not working to manipulate that intelligence. To me, that is the most logical explanation of how so many in the intelligence community got this so wrong about what was going to happen in Afghanistan. Why it would seem somehow logical for President Biden to leave the, quote, most advanced military weaponry, why some would not speak out against that if they were getting the false intelligence because it was coming from the top down to manipulate it. In my opinion, that's absolutely aid and comfort to the enemy. I absolutely wonder if you were complicit in this as well. I find it hard to believe that President Biden would do that without you being aware of this, and these are things that we deserve to know better answers, have better hearings on this. I do not believe a word that you're saying on this.
In other international news, Norway's left-wing opposition, headed by Labour Party leader Jonas Store, has won a landslide victory in the general elections after a campaign dominated by the future of the country's oil industry. Store unseated a centre-right coalition on Monday, headed by Conservative Prime Minister Jonas Solberg, which had been in power since 2013. The 5 countries in the Nordic region, a bastion of social democracy, will thus all be governed by left-wing governments soon. The 5 left-wing opposition parties were projected to win 100 of the 169 seats in parliament. Labour was even expected to win an absolute majority, with its preferred allies, the Centre Party and the Socialist Left. Preliminary results showed with more than 95% of votes counted. Eliminating concerns about having to rely on the support of 2 other opposition parties, the Greens and the Communist Red Party, Store has, like the Conservatives, called for a gradual transition away from the oil economy.
Alright, now we take a look at updates on COVID situation from across the world. Now, as per the figures, over 22.61 crore people have contracted the virus, while over 20 crore 27 lakh people have recovered from it. More than 46 lakh 52,000 people have lost their lives due to the virus globally. United States has been the worst affected country since the start of the pandemic and remains so as the Delta variant has accelerated the case tally. The US has more than 4 crore 21 lakh cases and also over 6 lakh 80,000 deaths.
And it's time now to take a look at all the news that's trending on the World Wide Web in our next segment, the Web News Review.
Alright, Anil, good morning. Let us know what all top stories have you picked up for us from the social media platforms.
The world. I've called out 5 stories this morning from the National Daily, starting first up with the Mint, where clearly Maharashtra is the state in focus with regards to COVID-19 cases. Slowly numbers decreasing there. Remember, this is festive season in Maharashtra. We've got the Ganesh Chaturthi festivals all around in the state, also in India and in the world. But Maharashtra in particular focuses on this festival. This is the beginning of the festive season for Maharashtra. So clearly numbers there, receding very much, and that's a big sign of relief, considering the fact when you look at the cumulative numbers from the state of Maharashtra, which has got close over 65 lakh cases of COVID-19 and over 1,38,000 deaths. So clearly, purely looking at from a number perspective, Maharashtra recording just 2,740 cases is a big sign of relief, not only for the state government, but also for the people who are fighting that COVID battle in India. Moving forward to the next story that I have picked out, this is from Twitter. Niti Aayog member VK Paul clearly, ringing alarm bells. He's not talking about mask going anywhere, or mask is going to be a part and parcel of our life all through 2022, subject to the fact, 2 things that he's mentioned. Remember, he's not ruled out a 3rd wave of COVID-19, and he's also asked people to be cautious, especially in this festive season, because if things spiral out with Diwali and Dussehra around the corner, things could spiral out, and people need to be cautious, and people need to follow those 3 simple steps of SMS. That is, sanitize yourself, mask yourself, and also maintaining social distance. So if that's followed, things could be under check. But he's not talking about ruling out, or he's not ruling out the possibility that we could be without masks, not only in 2021, but also the whole of 2022. We could be having masks as a part and parcel of our setup as we step out of the house. The third story is from Money Control. This is about the stock markets. The stock markets yesterday ending very much lower, amid that weak global cues, because there are no cues that the markets can pick up, purely looking for some kind of sentiment that the market is looking for from the US markets, but that's not coming. So the market clearly, ending lower. Sensex down almost 127 points, ending at 58,177. Nifty down almost 13 points, ending at around closely to 17,355 points. So not much to look for from the market, but today as the SGX Nifty STS has opened in the positive, so we can expect the markets today to be range bound. Also looking at the fact that why it's going to be range bound, for the simple reason US markets have snapped a 5-day negative run. So clearly looking at the inflation numbers that's expected to come in US, so that's going to have a positive impact. If not a positive impact, the markets are going to remain very much range bound when it comes to stocks today. Moving forward to the next story, that's from the Print. This is an interesting story about a dog that's become the ICC player or the dog of the match, because this is an interesting contest. Women's cricket, a dog who was there to watch as a part of one of the fans who was there at the stadium suddenly ran into the pitch. picked up the ball that was being used to play, and the players had to actually plead with the dog. Finally, the dog gave the ball back. So ICC is now picked Dazzle the dog as he's become the star. The Dazzle the dog has become the ICC player or ICC dog of the match by clearly ICC giving an honor to him, and that's something special that you rarely see in the world of cricket, where players walk away with the award. Here, Dazzle the dog walking away with the award and having his day on the big world stage. Finally, the last story that I picked up is from the Hindustan Times. This talks about fitness, the importance of fitness that celebrities lay to. This is with regards to Milind Soman. Milind Soman, everyone known as a fitness freak, loves to do his fitness even when he is traveling. This time around, he's vacationing in Jammu and Kashmir, but he's given people tips on a 30-second clip that he's put together. Even when you're vacationing, you need to keep that fitness trend going, and that's something that each one of us need to follow if you want to stay fit and healthy. Well, that's it from me. Back to you, Rukma and Preeti.
All right, on that fit note, thank you so much, Anil, for joining in with that web review.
And time now for some sports news in our next segment, Sports Track.
Former world #1 and king of clay, Rafael Nadal, dropped out of the top 5 in the ATP rankings released on Monday, while Spanish teenager Carlos Alcaraz, seen by many to be his compatriot's successor, soared 17 places to be ranked 38 in the world. The 13-time French Open champion, Nadal, has not played since losing to Novak Djokovic in the Roland Garros semi-finals this year due to a foot injury, and now sits 6th in the rankings. Meanwhile, despite the loss in the US Open this year final to second-ranked Daniel Medvedev, Djokovic comfortably retains the #1 spot.
British teenager Emma Raducanu moved up 127 places to the 23rd position in the world after her stunning triumph at the US Open. The 18-year-old became the first player to emerge from qualifying to win a Grand Slam tournament when she beat another teenager, 19-year-old Canadian Leila Fernandez, 6-4, 6-3 on Saturday. Fernandez was rewarded for her passage to the final with a rise of 45 places to the 28th. Former world #1 Naomi Osaka, who Fernandez beat on the way to the finals and has said she is taking a break from tennis, drops to 5th place.
Alright, now we get to the health segment, a health tip we get for you every day to make sure that you remain in good health and spirits. To lead a healthy life, one must include every nutritional content in his meal. Take a look at this report to know more about the relevance of a balanced diet, yoga and Ayurveda for physical and mental development of a person.
Nutrition plays an important role in holistic development of an individual. Nutritional contents like salt, vitamins, proteins and minerals must be included in our diet every day. Apart from balanced diet, yoga and Ayush also play a vital role in a healthy lifestyle. A balanced diet along with good routine help to keep a person mentally and physically fit.
जो हम आहार सेवन करते हैं उसको जीर्ण करना है, उसमें रक्त में बदलना है, रक्त संचार करना है और जो मल के रूप में रेसिडुअल रहते हैं उनको शरीर से दूर करना है। ये हमारा योगाभ्यास है। जीर्ण करने के लिए हमारा पवन मुक्तासन सीरीज है, धनुरासन है, वक्रासन है और कुछ क्रियाएं हैं, उससे जीर्ण प्रक्रिया सही ढंग से हो जाता है। अब अब्जॉर्प्शन और सर्कुलेशन में हमारा सर्वांगासन, हलासन, विपरीत करनी, वत्स्यासन, चक्रासन इत्यादि आसन से पूरा हमारा मेरुदंड सबल रहता है और सर्कुलेशन प्रोसीजर्स बहुत अच्छी ढंग से हो जाता है।
It is said, healthy minds live in healthy body, as balanced diet makes a body healthy with good digestive system and metabolism. Yoga helps to keep body and mind both healthy and fit. Nikhil Singh's report, DD India.
And up next, we take a look at temperatures across major cities of the country. Alright, that's it in this edition of the Breakfast Show this hour. But before we go, we leave you every day with this reminder to keep being part of the fight against pandemic. Wear a mask, wear it correctly and properly, maintain social distancing and other COVID appropriate behavior. Also remember, the fight is still not over. Though we've been achieving milestones and we are at a very decisive stage of the fight, but still we have to make sure that every act done on our part responsibly would give further thrust to the fight against the pandemic.
Well said, Preeti, and on that thought, it's a wrap on this edition of Breakfast News. We hope you enjoyed our show. We'll be back again tomorrow for more news and updates in the early morning. And as we go, we'll leave you with glimpses of 100 humpback whales who were sighted feeding at Bermagui on the Sapphire Coast region of New South Wales. South Coast. As we go, we leave you with these visuals. Take a look at them, enjoy and have a great day.
Bye-bye. You again.